you did this rally, you would have known that you were breaking the law, technically. Did that bother you?
Well, that isn't right. We had a lot of ongoing discussions with the police and everything was OK, and they agreed to enable our rally to end in a march to Downing Street. So there was completely no problem at all. We are a political rally and those are allowed. However, at the last minute, a different group of policemen turned up and arrested me. And when I was in the van, I asked them what is going on. And they indicated, let's say, that this came from on high. So as far as we can see, it's a political decision to arrest me, whereas allowing a Black Lives Matter event at the same time, or further down into Parliament Square, allowed that to happen.
And what was the reason? What was the reason given to you? Yeah, I mean, you raise an interesting point. I'm not really sure why you're being singled out for a £10,000 fine, yes, when there have clearly been a lot of other mass protests. What was the reason given to you as to why you have been targeted when, as you said, so many Black Lives Matter protests have taken place without anyone being fined?
No. Piers, it's interesting talking Piers to Piers.
Yeah, we don't meet many other Piers.
No, they didn't give.
I actually have a brother. I have a brother called Jeremy too, to make things even more weird. We'll come to that later.
Okay, that's good. No, they didn't give a reason as to why I was singled out, and I should think you, Piers, should challenge Sadiq Khan to explain why he's got political policing in London now, and also challenge him, if it's not political, allow us to have another rally on the 26th of September, just before Parliament.
Okay, well, I would say I don't understand why you've been singled out.
Trafalgar Square again, 26th of September.
Yeah, on that point, I can agree with you. It seems irrational and unfair.
But shall we look at the reasons
and we will ask
why
the
you held
But
the
yeah,
rally?
let's get to what you were actually protesting about. Do you believe the coronavirus?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you believe the coronavirus pandemic is real?
Well, there's various views on this. I mean, some doctors say that actually what we're seeing is some sort of flu that's been around for 46 years. And others say, well, it doesn't exist at all. There isn't actually a virus.
What's your view?
Everything which happens is exaggerated. Well, what we're doing is we're challenging the government to give actual evidence that there is a virus, and we've given them till the 5th of September to reply, to show under standard
Hang on a moment. The Prime
tests
Minister himself was hospitalised with the virus. How much more evidence do you need?
Well, was he hospitalised with the virus or was he ill from something else? You see, there's a lot of claims going on, and of course there might have been something happening in the past.
You're suggesting the British Prime Minister invented... OK, just to clarify, you are suggesting the British Prime Minister invented having a virus that may not exist?
I don't know if anyone invented it or not, but I would say that the numbers of people getting whatever they're getting is declining rapidly, and there's no justification whatsoever
25 million people. Well, again, Mr. Corbyn, let me just jump in. Just to clarify the numbers, 25 million people around the world have tested positive for coronavirus, COVID-19.
Well, yes, but you see...
And over 800,000... Well, hang on, let me finish the question, then I will let you answer.
These tests don't work. These tests do not work.
Let me finish the question. And over
don't interrupt me when I'm answering.
I won't. I'll let you answer. Over 800,000 people have now died from COVID-19. That is a demonstrable fact. Now, what part of that do you think does not constitute a pandemic?
Well, 800,000 people have died and they've been labelled COVID when it might have been completely something else. It is not a pandemic because the numbers dying are nothing different from a normal year of people dying, as they die all the time. And secondly, it is not a high consequence infectious disease, and that was declared by the government and the World Health Organization on March the 19th. So what we have is a psychological operation to close down the economy in the interests of mega corporations who are again out of massive joblessness happening upon us now.
More than 40,000 people have died in this country as a result of COVID directly.
Yeah, people are dying all the time,
Piers
and they're labelled COVID.
What an insult to their family to say it's some kind of fiction
to
boost
Dr. Vernon
international pharmaceutical companies.
Listen, well, it is boosting pharmaceutical companies and big telecom, who are making billions and billions out of this, while the ordinary British worker is going to the wall, losing jobs.
If those pharma companies
So we
are coming up with
stand for
treatments
return
can help
the
people who
economy.
are suffering and potentially find a vaccine that can prevent
You don't
long-term
need a
illness
vaccine.
and
There's
death,
no need for a vaccine.
that is entirely justified,
no.
isn't it?
Vaccines
It's not a
cause
fiction
death.
in order
The
to
history
boost
of
them.
Listen to me. You're interrupting. The history of recent modern vaccines shows they make people more ill. There is already a cure for these COVID symptoms, namely chloroquine and zinc. So there's no need
That's
for a
not a
vaccine
cure. That's a cure.
whatsoever,
I'm
except
sorry.
to make money
Okay.
for the mega corporations
Mr. Corbyn,
and the
Mr.
pharmaceutical
Corbyn,
industry.
Mr.
There's
Corbyn,
no need for it. We should
hydroxychloroquine-
scrap it because you, the viewers, are paying
Yeah,
for it.
Mr. Corbyn, if you may let me jump in.
What are you telling me about hydroxychloroquine?
It's not
Please,
a cure
please
for COVID-19. That's a complete lie. It's not a cure.
No, the doctors who've done it have said so, and it works.
No, they haven't.
And there's
It's
no
not-
evidence
it's not a
yet
cure.
from Boris Johnson
It
that
is
we
not
have
a
a virus.
cure.
There maybe there's a virus, maybe there's not.
I don't
Give them
mind
time.
you. I don't mind you coming on and talking about these things, but if you're going to state bold lies like hydroxychloroquine being a cure for COVID-19, that is simply not true.
I'm relying on expert doctors. Doctors
not.
say this, and I suggest what you say isn't true.
You're relying
Listen
on
to
conspiracy
Dr. Vernon
theorist whack
Coleman.
jobs.
Listen
And
to
you're not taking
Dr.
account
no,
of
no.
studies that
On
have been done on
statement-
hydroxychloroquine.
On
You just use
vaccines-
phrases like conspiracy theory when you've got nothing to say.
Okay, on vaccines, what happened with
Tell me about vaccines.
measles if
Yes.
vaccines don't work?
Yes, these are earlier type of vaccines. I'm talking about modern vaccines.
Did it work
More
then?
people
The
having
vaccine
flu
for
vaccines
measles,
get
did that
more
work?
Flu.
Did it work?
It might well have worked, but the vaccines of the past are different from the ones now, which have many additives, which are in general dangerous, and the statistics show that more people get lower immune systems when they've had vaccines.
Can we,
let's bring in
can
Dr.
we bring
Hillary.
in someone who is an
Show that
expert doctor
as
who
a
may be
fact.
very concerned, frankly, about what you're saying? Dr. Hillary.
Extremely
Speak to
dangerous
Dr.
what
Vernon
we've just
Coleman,
heard
for
from
example.
Mr.
Okay.
Corbyn, whose
Piers, Corbyn,
statements
just-
are littered with
let's listen.
errors, absolutely littered with dangerous errors. The hydroxychloroquine and zinc, for example, completely dissed by hundreds of different experts.
No,
Let me tell you about the
completely
virus
dissed
not
by the
existing.
Corbyn, let
pharmaceutical
Hillary Jones speak,
operations
please.
who
The
stand to make
virus
billions
has been
by injecting
identified
people.
by the electron microscope. We have sequenced the entire ribonucleic acid genome, so we know
sequencing.
exactly that this is a
Look,
new
I'll
virus
tell
and it's
you.
nothing to do with viruses that we've seen in the last 40 years. All of your statements are not only dangerous. Let me
All
tell you
right, can I
about
reply
modern
to that?
vaccine. You say that the
Can I
old
reply?
vaccines could have worked.
Can I
They
reply to
absolutely
that?
did work.
Can I reply to your
Measles, for
claim about,
example,
a virus
we saw
not identified?
460,000 cases every year of measles before vaccination. After that, we saw 130, a reduction of 99.9%.
But we're talking about
meningococcal
vaccines in the
meningitis,
past.
which
Okay.
kills 10% of people, was introduced.
Okay,
the
look,
vaccine was
so
introduced in
you're
1999.
going off the
Quite
question
recently.
before us.
And
You're
we
not
saw
answering the
numbers
question
decrease from
before us.
883
Answer
to
about
28.
modern
A
vaccines.
reduction of
Answer on the
97%
facts
and a
of modern
huge reduction
vaccines.
in mortality. You are dangerous. You shouldn't be preaching. You're not medically qualified. I don't know
No,
where you get your rubbish fake news from.
frightened to
And you shouldn't be on
answer
air.
The real
That I think
You're
you've probably,
frightened to
I think
answer
you've probably
the real
nailed it, Dr.
questions
Hillary.
about
frankly.
modern vaccines.
Modern vaccines
Okay.
work very well.
You're frightened. See,
Meningococcal meningitis. Go and have a look at the stats.
so-called testing.
Piers Corbyn,
the
I think
so-called
we've heard the
identification of a
expert
modern
evidence
virus is
from the
that is a
doctor,
bananas
and we'll have
answer.
to bring the
They're-
interview
no, they
to an
are-
end.
Piers Corbyn, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question.
They're
Do you believe, Piers
DNA
Corbyn,
and RNA rather than finding a
Piers
virus?
Corbyn, let me ask you another
They
question.
have not found a virus.
Do we have to-
Understand
Mr.
the
Corbyn,
test.
I understand-
There may be one, there may
Mr.
be
Corbyn-
not. Give them a chance.
Mr. Corbyn,
Yes, sir.
do you believe
Yes,
there is a
Piers.
link between 5G masts and COVID?
Well, that's the question is not correctly posed. The important thing to understand is that electromagnetic radiation, 4G, 5G, and normal Wi-Fi, which is mostly 4G, do lower your immune systems, and the statistics show very clearly, and this is proven by objective tests going over years, that those things do
It's actually complete
damage your
nonsense,
immune
isn't it?
system.
What you've just said is,
no,
with
go
respect,
online.
it's utter nonsense.
Measurements show
Come to
5G is 66 times below the safety limit
Piers,
for harmful
okay.
radiation, meaning it is not strong
You-
enough to harm
no,
ourselves
no.
or have a negative
The
effect on our
important
immune
thing-
system.
The important thing is not the amount of radiation, the important thing is the frequency. You're arguing just like the tobacco lobby. We have a new tobacco lobby. They said warming your lungs doesn't matter. It was the tar that mattered. And the same thing with the
climate
5G
change
is warming your
climate
skin
change
doesn't matter.
is,
it's the frequency that matters.
And climate change is another hoax, yeah? Man-made fossil fuels, all a hoax, everything made up?
Well, the sun rules weather and climate, and I can tell you that Christmas in Britain is going to be very cold, and we might even have snow there. And this comes from our long-range forecast.
OK, let's
Okay,
go
but
to
do you
another,
actually-
let's
do you
go to
actually-
another
Well,
expert,
then
our
invite me
meteorologist,
back on
Laura
Christmas
Tobin.
Day.
Do you feel as incensed as Dr Hillary?
Shock horror, it's going to be cold in winter and there might be some snow. That's just the most
Wait a minute.
vague thing that anyone's ever said.
Snow on Christmas Day? No, I'm letting you know there might be snow on Christmas Day. I thought that we should excite Piers. All Pierses get excited by snow on Christmas Day. Am I
OK,
right?
well, the
I
world
ask
is warming
you,
and climate change is very, very real.
Piers Corbyn, can I ask you, do you have these conversations with your brother who wanted to be British Prime Minister?
Do I have what? The what?
Do you have
Patience?
these same conversations with your brother Jeremy?
Well, I have many conversations. I mean, I'm sure we agree on many things about the current British economy and the crashing of jobs, which is an utter monstrosity. And I say the answer to that is end lockdowns now and save jobs, save lives, save the economy, save culture.
How many of your views does he agree with?
I don't know. But we agree on many things and we disagree on a number of things.
Does he
But
believe
let's say this is just,
COVID-19 exists? Or does he think, like you, it's all been drummed up by the
I
evil
don't know.
pharmaceutical
well, no,
people?
All I'm saying is, no, Piers, listen to me. I said we're giving the government a chance to prove under standard tests that it exists.
Of course it exists, Piers Corbyn.
If they got proof...